Hi there, my name's Ray Bogle. I am a potter and I live in Huntingtown, Maryland. Today I'm going to show you how to make a couple of little fish plates. I hope you enjoy the process and let's go do it. To make these, they're pretty simple. You don't need a lot of tools. You'll need some clay. So I have some clay here. This is regular potter's clay that does need to be fired in a kiln to become hard and durable. But you can get self-hardening clay, and you can get that at Michael's or via Amazon is another place you can get it. And with that, you make your item just like we would make it today, and then you're going to let it dry. And some self-hardening clays need to be fired in an oven at a very low temperature for an hour or so. One of those clays is called Skelpie clay, and as you can see here, this is an oven-baked clay. You do fire it for about 170 degrees for an hour or so. And this is enough that you could actually make one or two of these fish out of a pound. But you can also use it to make some stamps. I'll talk about that in a minute. You'll want some construction paper that you will use to make some little templates just by cutting them out. They kind of look like a football, and you'll use those. You'll see me use them a little bit later to make the initial cutouts that you'll turn into fish. The folks, when you start hand building with clay, a lot of folks do things with textures. So I just wanted to show you a lot of different ways to make stamps, and you can be very creative when you're making your fish and what kind of texture you put on it. But these are some stamps that I made by pushing Skelpie clay into shells, and so it gives me something with a little handle that I can use. And again, this one was done on a shell too, so I can take and kind of roll that. You see the texture there. I can push this one in there. You see that? These are some little wire nuts that you can take and push in. Get fun little things. You might do something like that for an eyeball. This was made out of clay and fired. So got that. You can use actual shells to push in, or even do something like that. That might be fun for doing some little scales or something like that. You can buy little rollers and other little wooden stamps, but you see how that makes that kind of fun. Here's a wooden stamp. Okay. And then you can also purchase regular old rubber stamps and use those. Those are nice if you're going to make some words on your pieces. And lastly, this is some cloth that I'm going to use to make fish scales. You'll see how that's done in a moment. And this is also here, I'm going to use this to make some scale type things. All right, so let's move on. I'm going to get my ball of clay. This is probably a pound and a half, or maybe close to 2 pounds. It's plenty of clay to make 2 of them. Okay, so you are going to need another piece of construction paper to use to roll out your slab, because we don't want to do it right on the board. If we do it right on the board or right on a table, it's going to stick to that. And you don't want that. It'll all get stuck and make a mess. So when you're making a slab, first go ahead and just push it out by hand. And lift this up a little bit. Move it back. And if you have a rolling pin, you can use that. If you're gonna, don't grab your mom's without asking for it. And the other things you're gonna need is a needle tool. You can use something like a very sharp pencil, or even a little nail, something like that. Just something that's kind of sharp on the end. And then you will also need a knife. This is called a fettling knife that potters use to cut things. Any old knife will do. Again, if you use one from the silverware drawer, make sure you ask parents first. And it's nice to have a little board to work on. So I'm flattening it out just by hand. Again, if you don't have a roller, you can just keep pushing on this. And you want to get this approximately 1/8 of an inch thick, but doesn't have to be exact. One way that you can use to get something that's fairly uniform is to use some wooden sticks like this, some paint sticks. You may have some of those laying around the house. But that lets you just kind of push down on the roller and it'll make it nice and even for you. You can see how it's getting flat, smooth on the top, flat. You don't have paint rollers, you may have some dowels. And this can, anything that's just two uniform thicknesses that you can use. You use the dowels in the same way. The dowels are about 1/8 of an inch thick, which is about what you want your slab to be. So I'm close now. Doesn't have to be exact. Don't worry about it. Just have fun. Okay. So there we go. We have this slab, and I'm now going to flip this over. It should remain stuck to the paper, and I'll peel the paper back. Okay. If it happens to have some little marks like that, it's not a problem. Take your roller and just very lightly roll it, and you should see that they go away. Okay. So we'll go ahead and flip this over. All right. So now, let me get my templates, and we'll go ahead and start making the fish. So what you do is you take your little template that you made and put that on there. This one here, I originally cut it as kind of a football shape, but I rounded it off just to where the nose would be a little bit rounded. Have fun with this. Make these different shapes. Maybe try one as a football just so you get the feel of it. But then I'm sure you can be very creative when you make your own. All right, so we'll take that, and now I'm going to use my knife to just cut around them. Just don't worry that if you're not perfect on cutting, it's just a guide to get you in the right shape. Here we go. Now, don't throw your scrap clay away. We will need that here in a moment, but you can wad it up and just set it aside. All right. So I'm first going to put the fish scale texture on. And to do that, got some netting. We got this at the local Joann's fabric store. You place that on your piece, and you'll want to use your roller if you have it. If not, just lightly press it in by hand. But the important thing is don't really cram it down into the clay, because it'll make it really hard to get out. So you'll see what it looks like here. So I'm just lightly putting the roller over it, and what you're looking for is I want to be able to still see the cloth. If I push it down too much and it gets trapped in there, it kind of gets hard to come out. So see that? Looks like fish scales. Okay, and then I'll show you, do essentially the same thing. Now I'm leaving this area not, blank, because that's going to be the head up there. And you just lightly do this again with the roller or with your hand. Again, keeping to where you can still see the cloth. You don't want to get it too squished down in there, but see that? Looks good. All right, so get this one set aside, and we'll pull this one out to where we can now work with it. So you're gonna first, and you can do these things actually in any order, but I'm gonna start with the eyeball. So you take a little ball of clay, and anytime you are working with clay and you're gonna stick one piece of clay onto another, or you have two pieces like you'll see later with the fins and you need them to stick together, you have to do what's called scoring and slipping. So you take your pointy object or needle and you do some scratches. That's called scoring. And then I'm gonna put the eyeball right about there, so I do a little scratch. You take a brush, just a little bit of water, doesn't have to be much at all. And take your scratched area, put it down, push it a little bit, and then you can use something. I'm going to use the end of the paintbrush to make a little eyeball right there. Now, you can put a mouth in it by just drawing the mouth on it, or you can cut one. That's what I do sometimes. Just kind of take my knife and do that. Now you could just maneuver that around if you wanted to, or you can take and get a little chunk of clay out of there. So okay, it makes a fun little mouth. Do it however you want. You can make a shark, put little teeth in there if you wanted to. Lastly, up at the head, I like to put a little bit of a separation. I'm going to hold the paintbrush like this, not necessarily like a pencil, because that will more scratch it and leave some burrs. So if you hold it like this, you can just take and do that, and it leaves a smooth line. And then fish have gills, so just to simulate some gills, you can do something like that. Now the last thing we need to do is to go ahead and make his little back fins. And the easiest way to do that is to take your knife and to just kind of cut it like so. You can be creative with this. I would suggest you do your first one kind of like this, just so you get the feel of working with the clay. But afterwards, I'm sure there's some more creative ways to do it. Now, we're going to gently pick these up, and I will put them together like that. But we need to score this where they're going to overlap. In this case, I'm just going to do one. It would be kind of hard to get the underside, and this is sufficient for what we're doing. Put a little bit of water there, not a lot. You don't want it dribbling all over the place. And then I'm going to fold that over gently, and you'll notice it'll curve up now in the back there, and just gently push those together. You don't have to squish them or deform them. There's enough there to hold it together. Now, you could choose to leave it like that. Might be kind of a fun little guy with it flat down here, but I like to help them be a little bit curved up. So you can see on this one here where these edges are curved up a little bit. That way, if you happen to put something in there that might be a liquid, it wouldn't just flow out. So what you'll do, get this guy out of the way, and I'm going to make a coil. Do that by taking some of your spare clay and roll it out You can do one bigger roll here, or I'll kind of do this with two. So you'll take that and then make another one. There's no exact size for these, so don't be too worried about it. And oops, what we're going to do is use these coils to slowly lift up the edge, and then to support that lifted edge with the coils. Okay, so just take your time, lift up that edge, and get it mostly smooth. And then we'll lift up this side and put that coil under there. Lift up the nose just a little more. Okay, now the whole thing may be up a little bit, so you can now very gently push it down until you feel it hit the table. And that's it. You are done with your fish for now. Now you may have some little rough edges on here where you've cut. Don't worry about those right now. You need to let the clay dry a little bit. So over here, I have some fish. I made these ones yesterday, and you can see that these are a little lighter in color than these. These were made earlier today, and they're still pretty much the same color as your original clay, but I can now pick them up, and you can see they're hard or harder. This is called leather hard clay. It's where you can handle it. And what you'll want to do here is got a little bit of water, a sponge, like with no dripping water out, nothing, no drips, not a lot of water. And you can use this sponge at this time to go around and just gently get the edges, and you can get rid of any sharp burrs. Shouldn't take much to just do that. And now you want to be careful of your little fins. They are easy to break off and can be a little bit hard to reattach at this state, although you could. If you break one, do a little bit of a score and a little bit of water and put it back on. But try not to break them. So what's helpful there is to brush with the direction of the fin. Don't brush it down, because then you might break it. And that's it. So now this is basically done, and you would set it aside to dry. If you're using the potter's clay, a couple of days and it'll be completely dry, and then you'll have to find some way to get it fired. You may know somebody with a kiln. Lastly, I just wanted to share that you notice how this clay is much lighter in color. This is clay that has been completely dried, and at this point the clay is very brittle. And you'll see here that if I take how easily it just literally breaks and it would crumble. And at this point you essentially can't fix it. So once they get to that state, be very careful of the fins when you're transporting it or working with it. And that's it. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video on how to make your little fish plates. Have a good time.